Hey everyone, welcome to She Is More Than Existing. This is the podcast about keeping it real. This is about the real life of living beyond our mask and our identity and the roles that we play. It is about being true, real, raw, and honest. And so here is the place of where I discuss and talk about everyday issues and everyday life and all of the things that happens in our lives. And so my growth, my development is the stories that I kind of do share with others and about my aha moment. So it's been a while. I noticed that my last podcast that I've recorded was probably not long after my wedding. And that's 2023. 2024 was a big year. A lot happened after after I had gotten married. And so I actually want to look up when that actually was. So, bear with me here because I am going to look up. I'm going to look and see when that was that I actually recorded a podcast. And let me just see if I can get into my other channel. Switch accounts. And of course, this one is my small account. I have only a very small number of followers on this one, so I hope to grow this one more again this year. But my other one is my More Than Existing, Corrie Thorne, More Than Existing, the psychic medium, spiritual healer account. And that one is filled full of videos. So, 7 months ago. So it was contemplation. What was I doing in that contemplation? Oh, I was putting together cards. So that was my last one. And it was it was inspired by the podcast on betrayal. That was the last one I recorded. And I have not recorded one since. So I was actively in my recovery. We had edited Wine and Chips. And so since that time, my book Wine and Chips has arrived and Wine and Chips has come out and another deck of cards have also arrived. So since that time, Wine and Chips, the book Wine and Chips has arrived, and Want to Know a Secret to a Life of More Than Existing has arrived. These are on Amazon. These are on the website. The link to these and the link and the way to purchase these are all on the website. So if you go to CorrieThorne/Cameron.com, you'll see all of that. So it hasn't been since my wedding. It's been since after my back surgery. I am coming up on January the 21st, the 1 year since I had a spinal fusion. That has been quite the journey. What I didn't know would transpire since that time was and I swear by this, that I swear once they opened up my back and they opened up that spine and released those nerves and the pressure and give me separated my spine so I got taller, was that it was like opening up a treasure chest of life. It really was. It was just like your spine is connected to everything in your body, and it is the tree trunk to our life, right? It holds everything. And it began a really big journey for me. And I have been very human this past year and very much in my human existence throughout this year, along with also being very connected into and a big part of my spiritual growth and who I am born this way as a medium and living that life and walking away from being able to move through and beyond the imposter. And, if you listen to psychologists on imposter, some say it doesn't, it's like there's no real such thing as an imposter syndrome, but it's labeled as an imposter syndrome. And it is ultimately that belief, that imprinted voice, those conversations that you had heard on repeat that you believe, but yet you don't believe, right? There is this, it's where doubt exists. It's where you doubt everything of who you are, where every bit of judgment and criticism that's ever been placed upon you is that you never believe you are enough or that you've done enough. And so I have spent a year really looking at and exploring and with great compassion that part of myself, and why I can never celebrate, never be fully happy, why I move on to the next project as fast as one is done, why I never stay with it long enough to do, say, book tours and big release parties and celebrate anything. I don't even celebrate my birthdays. Like, I don't ever have that time of where I ever feel like I could celebrate, or I didn't. And it's been a big journey. Sound familiar? Sound like that you may be there, or that you may also be there? Well, this is some of the things that have come up for me. And as I was sitting downstairs this morning, and it's been a late morning for me, I was really looking at this past year and looking at the things that have transpired during this past year. And for a little bit this week, I have been saying to myself, with this full moon energy of the Cancer full moon, this is being recorded on January the 15th now. So we're just come through the Cancer full moon. We've had these crazy retrogrades happening, and Mars definitely playing a big part here. But now we've had North Node in Aries and South Node in Libra for, like over a year. And now we're shifting that North Nodes into Pisces, and South Node then goes into Virgo, I think it is. I'm not an astrologer because of my work. I'm not a professional astrologer, put it that way. And so there's all these aspects that are shifting in our world and our lives. And we are so influenced by this collective consciousness of the world's energy and what's happening in the world. But one of the things that has transpired is that my little soulmate, Sydney, passed away, my little dog. And she passed in December. Now, since the birth of my daughter and the raising of Sydney being the second dog who had disabilities, who I call, both of them were really truly my, they were my therapy dogs. So between my daughter and two dogs that really needed me constantly, every one of these, including my daughter, always rose very early in the morning. They woke up. My daughter always got up about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I got my first dog, Kiana. She did the same thing. Now I have other animals with that, but that's my early risers. And then I had Sydney, and Sydney would also rise up very early. She wanted her breakfast. She wanted to go out. She was very routine, very scheduled. So I've had these spirits in my life that were, really connected to my soul, who are very regimented, very scheduled, very routine, including my daughter. And since the passing of Sydney, for the first time in almost 29 years, I actually have not been awakened at that early in the morning. And I used to always say, I love getting up that early, but I have been sleeping in until probably 7:30, 8 o'clock, some mornings 8:30. This is so not natural. And it has it's awoken some more voices of how that is lazy, unacceptable, should not be happening. But I realized that for the first time, my body is actually beginning to rest. So having back surgery, I jumped up and got into action, start editing Wine and Chips, got into that book. I start jumping back into showing up in the world, doing things. I went on the road. I did a tour, a mediumship event tour. Like there, I taught a class. Like there was nothing that I didn't jump back into action for. And recognizing that part of myself was really recognizing how busy I could be, but how this past bit and the changes that's been happening in my life was that I noticed that as I sit down in the morning, I'm not relaxed. I think I'm relaxed. I'm not relaxed. I am not. I have to force myself into writing. I have to force myself into meditation. What is common and what has been coming up is the fact that I am wasting time, that I am being lazy, that I am that this is wrong, that I have to stop this. This is the last day. I better set my alarm. I better start getting back up in the morning. I got to get back on routine. I got to get back on a schedule. And I can feel the forces of reasoning and the forces of nurturing. I can hear all aspects of everything I have that I have learned, everything that I teach, everything that has been channeled through to me. And all of this information is all coming at one time. And I still end up sitting. And today I never got up off of that couch and out of that space with my tea, with my contemplation, with my book that had blank page, there's nothing written, sitting there until 12 o'clock. Now I'm at that crone stage. I don't have small children at home. I have a flexible schedule. I get, unless it's days that I have clients, and then I have to get up and go to work online. But when I don't, then it's my schedule. I get to do and work when I please. And so this morning, as I was sitting there and I was in that place, was I was in looking at some of the edits that we have been working on the way. And we have been working through the book, The Way, and editing that book. And yes, another book. And as I was editing The Way, I heard this little voice just say, you've become a much better writer. You have gotten better. Why have you gotten better? It's because you didn't quit. It's because you didn't quit. You didn't stop. And that your writing has to reflect the writer you are today and not the woman who wrote the book. The stories are from the woman who wrote the book at the time, who she was. But the writing has to reflect who you are today, how far you've come, how much better you've gotten at what you've done. It cannot be from you not wanting to leave behind something of the past or doubting yourself. You know who you are. You know what you bring to the table. You know what you do. And so this voice felt very powerful. It felt like a truth that was being spoken. It felt like something that was coming from an exterior, but an interior place within myself. And I'm like, okay, I know that voice. That voice wrote, there was a voice that once wrote Wine and Chips. And that was the essence of the version of ourself that can really disconnect and live through this made up version of ourselves, through our persona, right? Through that old identities. And so where did he want me to take this? And so when I got up and I finally got ready, I was trying to make my hair look decent for the day. I was trying to put myself back together. And in between all of that voice, I just heard, you need this rest. You need this time. You need this downtime. This is the time that you need. You didn't give yourself this time. This is the version of you without the imposter. This is the version of you that now does not have the imposter voice. This is the version of you that wants to be here. It is the version of you who knows the place. It is the version of you without doubt, without shame. But yet, here was still in echoing behind was this voice. And it was telling me that, who do you think you are to be sitting on this couch? Who do you think you are? Your husband's at work and you're this and you're that. And so it took me back. And so just looking up looking up that last podcast that I recorded and speaking about betrayal. And what I recognized was that I've done a lot of things on the back end of this 1-year anniversary of my back surgery. And it really, truly was a real full circle moment when I could hear the voice that was saying something good about myself, that was recognizing what I have accomplished and how far that I have come. Now, the reason why I really feel the call to share this with you today, and the reason why this is all coming up today, is that for most of us, that you may feel like this is just that you're a negative person, or that you are hard on yourself. This is something more. And when you look at that, imposing thoughts, the imposing beliefs, the imposing is this intrusive, that you've had this intrusive energy that has always been intruding and violating and taking advantage and betraying and destroying parts and pieces of that true identity. And those words sound very harsh, but we don't realize how harsh we are and how unkind we can be to ourselves. And when we hear it being spoken about another, or when we hear ourselves being judged or criticized, is that we feel it, right? We feel it coming from another, because we are so sensitive we can be so sensitive to the judgment, the criticism coming from others. And we can be so sensitive of somebody else being judged and criticized. But we have really desensitized from being so judgmental and criticizing and judgmental and criticizing ourselves. And because we have become accustomed to accepting that this is just who we are, this is how we approach things, this is what motivates me, right? I beat myself up to be motivated, I push myself through. It's like, and so is that really acceptable or healthy anymore? And I'm recognizing that all of this rest, I'm really actually proud that I'm sleeping in. I'm acknowledging that this is my body kind of doing what it's never gotten to do. That for a good portion of my life, and all of our lives, not just me, but a good portion of our lives since we were probably school age, is that we have been a slave to those clocks. We've been a slave to the systems. We've been enslaved in our own, in the conditioning and the thoughts that get up, get moving, get going. This is what you have to do. This is what needs to be done. There's no time to relax. There's no downtime. And that the downtime, you have to create a practice so that you can actually validate that you're doing something in that downtime. As long as you got to practice, we're good. We can be in the practice, create a practice that fills that space, that fills the slot, that fills that time. And if you got to practice, then you can say, oh, well, I get up at this time and I do this and I do that. And it all completes the story of the I, and how productive we are and how busy we are and how we're doing this and we're doing that. And so that we can so that we fill up all of this space and all of this energy. And what I'm coming to really notice in myself is that I don't need to create anything or do anything to be enough. That I don't have to continually be trying to keep filling up that space, because the voice that is not getting the same attention is the voice that tells me that I'm only enough if, or that I have to be doing something, that I have to be busy. And it's the part of myself that recognizes that this is the time of year when I slip into seasonal disorder, when the sadness comes, or when I feel sad. But a lot of those things that I'm doing, that I was doing before, was so that I wouldn't feel sad, so that I wouldn't feel anything that I needed to feel, including feeling joy, including feeling celebrated, including feeling enthusiastic, excited. It was about continually pushing beyond the emotions. And so this journey, and on the back end of this 1 year, what I have come to really recognize in a matter of hours, days, not long, was that I'm hearing the other voice now. I'm hearing the voice of something within the self. I'm hearing the voice, I believe, of that soul self that really recognizes that, you know what, you you are very organized, you're very regimented, you're very, you have areas of your life of where this matters, and then you have areas of your life where this shouldn't matter anymore, where you don't have to be this, but your body needs to heal. Your body needs to heal through all of the love that it has that it has shared, that it has experienced, all the love that is released in hurt, in grief, in changes, all of that love. And so the healing is all of this love. And if you're sitting and you allow yourself to sit in this love, to be with this love, then you are doing more than enough. Because the other thing that happened this year was my daughter and her husband decided to move. And they didn't just move, a half hour away. They moved 45,000 kilometers away. And they moved back to my hometown, decided that this is where they need to be for this phase of their lives. And, taking that leap of faith. And I'm so proud of them. But I also have to acknowledge my grief in that, my sense of sadness in there, but also the space that opened up, because that space has always been occupied for 29 years by the presence of my daughter. And then the extension of my daughter and her husband coming in, and her marriage and her wedding, her children, my grandchildren, so my two grandchildren coming in, and the expansion of everything that happens to them, and getting to their special days and their special events, and just being grandmother, just being Nana, and making time to be Nana, and stepping in as Nana, and being available to whatever they need. And what I recognized this morning in all of this, and now with the availability of not having my disabled puppy dog and still having my well and healthy dog and cat, but having the disabled Sydney, who occupied and took up a lot of space and made a lot of noise and bossed me around and controlled me, was that there is space for me, and that there's space in my life, and there's space for my marriage, and there's space for me to grow with my husband. There's all of this space, but that my new schedule, my new time is probably going to be 8:30. It's probably going to be 8 a.m. And I was taken back to something that reminded me of my grandmother and when I was a kid. And one thing that I loved going to my grandmother's for was that my grandmother stayed up till about 3 in the morning, 3:30 sometimes. She was always up very late. And she was a night owl. And she did not get up early. So not typical of the role of a grandmother that way, because grandmothers are up early, they get things done, they're right. But my grandmother, my nan, she slept in, and she slept in till 11:30, 12 o'clock, 11 every day. And she didn't feel guilty. She rested. Her body needed a rest. She didn't jump out of bed and get into action. She got out of bed and had her tea and her toast, and that was her morning ritual. Then she got to work, and she'd brush herself down, get dressed, and put herself together like a stick of gum so perfectly. And she would be so ready for her day. And in that readiness, she would go about her chores and her to-do list, and she would just knock things off as she was going. She had a pattern, and she just did the things that need to be done while she whistled, while she sang, always kind of whistling and singing. And then she'd stop and she'd take a break. She'd talk to the neighbors, whatever it was, but her things would get done. And it was because she had a point at the end of the afternoon when she would have something that needed to get done. And her priority, her importance was to get supper on the table. And that my grandfather ate at 5. So even after he passed, supper still continued at that time. But she never changed that part of herself and who she was. And she definitely never felt guilty about it. She never doubted whether or not she was doing the right thing. It was the right thing for her, and it worked for her. And what she taught me in her ways was she taught me the power of contentment. And that one of the things that stands in the way, and one of the things that creates that imposter, is our inability to be content. That we are never fully content. Content with the job well done, content with the job that we've done today. Maybe we can do better tomorrow, but we did our best. And every day she showed up and just did her best. And what I recognized was that all the way through, everything that I've done, everything that's been throughout life, was always doing the best that I could. At the end of the events of when I was on the road, the first couple shows was I would hear this critic. I'd hear the inner critic. I hear some outside about comparison and being compared to this medium and that medium. And, oh, do you know this medium? Oh, this and that. And it's like, but I'm not that person. And so I would reenact and try to wonder, did I give enough? Have I given enough? What more could I give? What more could I do? And by the time I got to the last shows, I'm just like, I did the best that I could do. I'm just the vessel, and I give the space for spirit to speak. And that's all that's all that is asked of me. So today I have done all that is asked of me. And each and every day it is about, I have done what is now asked of me. What my soul is asking, what my spirit is asking, what my human body needs, what I need, and what is asked of me. And so all of these little points, and mapping and bringing this all together and bringing it to right here in this podcast, and kind of, it's like the way that I'm seeing this come in is like, I don't know how many people would remember this, but remember the pictures that would have it was like nail art or string art, and you had all these little finishing nails that were in the shape of something, and then you had the string, and you would put the string and it would form into like a 3D view, because the strings would be layered, the 3D view of an image, and you would be able to see the image. And that's kind of what I'm seeing coming together in this podcast, is that this, and what I'm seeing in my life, is that I now see the image. I now see the woman. I now see the person who is here, who's no longer 20, who's no longer 30, who's no longer 40. I'm not even 50 anymore. That in a few months, I'm going to be 54. And in this 1 year alone, I've lived a lifetime. I've upheavaled, I've lifted up, I've opened up the treasure chest. I have found things and parts about myself or about my healing that could take lifetimes. That, yeah, being born awake, it sucks sometimes, but it is also a great blessing. But what I really truly can bring all this together is a picture of the power of contentment. And what that means, and contentment doesn't mean complacent. It means that each and every job that you do, each and everything that you achieve, is that you can be content and still know that there's still more to come. There's still there's still a maturing, growing version of ourselves that is coming through there. It's not looking back and going, oh, well, I didn't do a good enough job back then 20 years ago, so now I got to do a better job now. It's not living in comparison to who and what you once were, because those versions of ourselves only knew what they knew, didn't know any better. I was never even a freaking writer, but yet I heard write the books and I wrote the books. I didn't know what the books would even be about, but yet I wrote the books. Yet I sat with a pen, and I sat with a pen, or I sat with my phone, or I sat with a computer, and words would just come and the pages would just fill. And it was so beyond me. And it's hard to be able to embrace and see the magic of life when you're so busy stuck in the darkness, when you're so busy stuck in the conditioning that you can't see the magic that unfolds, that you can't see how all of this can be leading to something else, that there is something new that is unfolding, that everything, every experience, every moment is leading you to something new, to a new way of being, to a new way of living, that something more is happening. But when we're so busy occupying the space, and we're so busy trying to fill the space, or we're so busy trying to create something that is because we have to be busy, is that we stand in our way when we're so caught up in the criticism and the judgment that we become, that we, in trying to improve beyond, in trying to improve beyond the criticism and the judgment, is that we're trying to create a version of us that makes somebody else happy who's probably long gone, that has moved on to somebody else to judge or to criticize. But the person that we become so desensitized to torturing us is ourselves. The thing we hate the most is still the thing we do to ourselves the most. The thing that caused us the most struggles in our lives is the things that we continue to bring into our lives and repeat and do. And so knowing that aspects of ourselves and seeing that part of ourselves is one thing, but to hear the voice of evolution, to hear the voice of love speak to us, from us, begins to change the outlook. It begins to change how we react, how we respond, and how we show up in life. And so for myself, keeping it real, keeping it raw, is to share the thoughts as they are just unfolding and unpacking this in the podcast. And so I'm unpacking this here. And so unpacking this in this moment is kind of exactly, it is not organized. It is all over the place. But if you stayed until the end, you may get to see that, this is our normal way to be. And the reason why I don't write the how-to books is because as long as you are writing your own story, speaking your own truths, you're not taking somebody else's. When you truly are in your moment, in that experience, is that you are using your words, and that we have been so conditioned to create something of a masterpiece that has perfection to it, that we seek out and we look for often things that we can piece together or put together because, someone wants, it's like, I guess the thing that I was told a few years ago was, if you're going to create your oracle cards, make them very simple, because people don't have the attention span to read beyond 1 or 2 lines. If you're going to create your videos, make your videos 30 seconds long, because that's the attention span people have. If you're going to write your books, make sure it's going to be captivating, so it's something that the people know that they're searching for, they're seeking, so it gives them that advice, or it tells them what to do. And it's like, I've not been able to read my whole life a book. I'm all about depth. And if somebody really truly wants to really get to know themselves, you're not going to find yourself in 30 seconds. And a meme is not going to change your life. And if I responded, and if I showed up the way that the system has told me would create the perfection to give other people what they want, I will once again create a narrative and a person for somebody else, but I will not be in my story. It will not be the channeled messages. It will be fragments. And sharing of stories all the way back to what my soul can remember, all the way back to how God shares stories with me. God speaks wisdom through stories. God speaks wisdom through taking us on a journey that says, this may not be the short road. This may not be the shortcut, but it's going to be the one worth walking. It's going to be the one that's worth taking. And so I've not been able to become that which makes it so that other people get what their shadow wants, because I can't feed the shadow and feed the hungry ghost of society. And so bringing the messages is about being so in the moment that I know that everything that's being written or coming from me is coming from spirit. It's coming from a place of authenticity. And you can't find your way to authenticity when you're trying to always create something that is not authentic. And authenticity is not that it's original. It's not that no one else is like you. It's not that, oh, I'm so different that you think you're special. Oh, I'm so different, nobody understands me. No, that's not it. Is authenticity is simply freaking showing up and being very okay with what is transpiring in the moment. Because when you sit in a circle and you allow conversation to flow, you allow thoughts to come out, by the time the conversation ends and it's done, you may have thought that you solved the world's problems for today, but there's a sense of something that happens. It's complete. It's a contentment. We've just come full circle to something. We've come into understanding each other. We've come into accepting that we all have a story. We all have something. And being content with knowing that I have done more, that I have done enough in each and every day, that I have grown, and that I am who I am today because of all that I have done in my yesterdays. And that all those things of the yesterdays, all of this past year, all of this journey has all led me to this very moment of a string art, of a tapestry of life. And that one thread, that one string, which is called us, can create such a beautiful picture that even ourselves should be admiring it and looking at it with such love. And maybe today it's okay that you sit back and rest and not have to create a practice to fill the space or to occupy your time. But maybe today, for just a moment, that you can just sit and listen, because you never know what story may speak and communicate a beautiful message back to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being with me. And may you always choose to more than just exist. This journey is well worth taking. And where am I in my back surgery as of now? 1 year on the 21st of January. I am standing, I am taller. I did try to push myself to get back into the gym. I have paid for a gym membership for the past 4 months that I used for the first 3 weeks, and then I haven't used. But I have kept showing up each day. I keep trying to move my body, practicing the movements that I could do. But I've learned to be gentler and really appreciating that this body will do its thing in time, and it's all happening. Life is happening, things are happening, but I've done the best that I could do with what I've had, with where I've been. And this year has tested, challenged, showed me that life has no certainties. It has changed. My life has changed again, and life is forever changing. You die every night, you wake up every morning again, a new version of yourself with a new opportunity, a new possibility, and we never know what's coming. But I am really getting the magic of contentment. And I hope in some way that you find your way to the magic of contentment. Much love. Thank you for being with me. And thank you for listening to this She Is More Than Existing podcast. I look forward to sharing more of these. I don't make no promises because they only come when I'm ready to unravel those thoughts. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. And may life take you through the journey of more than existing.